Hello, DevOps people! I'm finally back from holidays and, more importantly, from my hiatus of not streaming. So, thanks! Oh, hey, Julian. Hey, how you doing? SB4, so good to see you. And, yeah, I'm happy to be back as well. Took me quite a while, didn't it? And I guess I'll talk about what brought me back and what I'm going to do from here on out. And yeah, talking is what I'm going to do tonight. No project that I am going to work on or something like that. Maybe you'll see a terminal, but the main goal that I have tonight is simply to have a chat with you. And oh, hey, Julian, yes, I am fine. I am perfectly fine. Actually, I'm really great, and I hope you're fine too. I am a little bit rusty with managing my stream here, so let me see if I can switch things around a little bit to get more control over things here. Yeah, that looks better. Now I can see what I'm doing. Holidays, how's the summer treating you? Are you sweating your arse off in Germany? Which reminds me, even though it's not nearly as hot here in Ireland, I forgot to grab my drink, so I will run downstairs in a little bit and fetch a glass so that I don't run dry. Oh hell yes, says oh hey Julian. Yeah, I can imagine. $36, 38. Yeah, over here, 27 in your room. Actually, let me check. I think I have 27 in my little office here as well. Even though outside temperatures, my panel says it's 16 degrees outside in the evening here. But let me see. Yeah, 26 degrees here in my office. I seem not to be able to get the temperatures down here, even though windows are open and sometimes I even have a fan running, but the house seems to be pretty stable in terms of temperatures. If it's cold, it stays cold if you don't heat it, and if it's hot, it stays hot. But I don't complain. I can sit here in my t-shirt without getting cold. My main problem, Foxbit says 26 degrees. I have 31.5. Oh dear, yeah, and that is probably in the evening, right? Alex4TMN says 43 outside? That's insane. Where are you based? In what country are you based? Are you in the Mediterranean? Or in Spain or something? Okay, Abu Dhabi, yeah. But 43 at 11 p.m.? No, you couldn't. I'll switch it off. That's going to be annoying. Yeah, so they did have a good time. I don't have that bad of a conscience now. But yeah, and then we traveled back to where our families are based, meet parents and things like that. And I spent another week there, and then I returned to Ireland, and the rest of my family will, in the end, have spent 3 more weeks with our families, and I'll fetch them from the airport next Monday night. Well rested and highly motivated, and over the course of these holidays I also spent a little bit of thinking about will I revive my live stream, what am I going to do, and things like that. And yeah, I came to a good conclusion today, actually. And yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. Foxbit says, so it's Dracula themed these days. Switched to Tokyo Night a few weeks ago. Tokyo Night is also nice. It's very similar to Dracula, a little bit more neon, as the name implies. But yeah, I've adopted Dracula years ago, and there's actually a team around the Dracula theme that keeps doing adaptations of Dracula for all kinds of applications, websites, desktop environments and stuff. So I have Dracula running a lot here on my machines. Balthazar joining us. Hello, Balthazar. How are you doing tonight? Good to see you. And since I feel myself running dry, let me quickly grab a drink and I'll be back in a second. Bethesda says, I got about 4 hours of sleep dragging today. I can't imagine. Is it still the back? That's part of why you couldn't fall back asleep. Ah, that's rough. That's really rough. Oh, and you woke up and couldn't fall asleep again. Had the same issue, actually. I got woken by an infrastructure alert. Foxbit says, sounds like you had a good time, holidays. Good that you could refresh a bit. Now time to start again. Exactly. I'm highly motivated to get back in. I am getting back into my work. I returned Monday last week. And to be honest, I really had difficulties getting back into a rhythm. And yeah, it took me a few days, but I'm getting back. I'm on my normal schedule again when I get up, and I try to get in bed at decent times as well. But sometimes my day also gets disrupted, like last night at about 3 a.m. I got an alert that a specific cleanup job failed, which was the consequence of a change that I made. We had a server that ran out of disk space because of access logs, which are exploding basically because the websites that are getting logged on that server are high traffic websites. And so yesterday I replaced that log directory with a mount of a cloud volume. So basically I added 50 gigabytes for logs only, and thought that would solve the problem. Well, it solved the space problem, but there was a slight issue with how the cleanup job works, and that conflicted with the ext4 file system I chose for this volume. I thought, well, let's go with plain vanilla ext4. What I didn't anticipate was that ext4 creates a directory at the file system root called lost and found, and that's where files end up that get discovered during file system checks. Foxbit says no CFS, not in that case, no, that would have been overkill. I just needed a little bit more space. And Balthazar already knows what's coming, I guess. Say, yep, haha. So the thing is, that cleanup job runs with an unprivileged user, and it tries to execute a find command to delete old logs. And that find command then crashes against the lost and found directory, which can only be accessed by root. And so that's why that job failed, and it got me up at night. And I had first to debug how the whole logging on that machine worked, because that was built by a colleague of mine. And I hadn't looked into the whole logic, how logs are collected locally and then shipped to a different server yet. And so I spent some time understanding what's going on there and what the actual issue was and things like that. So I lost, I guess, 1 or 2 hours all in all, because then I got distracted and started reading stuff, and yeah, I was well awake, and then I slept in and basically spent all morning sleeping. So I lost the morning, which I wanted to use for a live stream. And that triggered that I said, okay, somehow it really doesn't work out with live streams and myself. So let's think about that. And I'll tell you about my thinking in a second. Bethesda says, you know, I started using XFS for logging deers. That would have been an option, actually. Is there a specific reason why you're using XFS? Because I guess I thought logs are just continuous streams of data. It's no random access. It's just write and write and write and write and write, and then you start a new log eventually, and then write and write and write and write. So that's not really taxing to a file system. And so I thought, yeah, we can go plain vanilla with Extended4 and do that. XFS is something that I pick when I build file systems for databases and things like that. So is there a specific reason why you are using XFS for logging as well? Theo joining us, saying, hey there, Monospace Mentor, truly appreciate these stories from the battlefield. Truly appreciate you popping in. It's so good. I'm back streaming after weeks and weeks and weeks of not streaming, and people are coming back in and saying hello. I can't tell you how much this makes me happy. How are you, Theo? How's it going? Bethesda says, if the log format happens to be a database, some of XFS's characteristics can be more friendly for those circular journal databases. Okay, I see that. If it's a binary log of some sort, or... How can a log be a database? I'm struggling to imagine that. How does that look like? Is it like, well, I'm logging everything into a SQLite database? That's actually a good argument. It's kind of a safe default, regardless if the log format is text-based or circular journal-based. You're right. XFS is actually a safe choice. I mean, even if it's basically over-qualified to save text logs, it'll do that just as well as it does database stuff and things like that. So maybe I'll pick XFS the next time. Learning from a lost night of sleep. Thea says, right on, but I'm well, all good. That's so good to hear. I'm doing well as well. Cheers. Foxbit says, I always struggle between X4 and BetterFS. Okay, yeah, BetterFS is quite popular nowadays as well, and Fedora, for example, uses it for its base installations as well, and it does a good job at that. I really like how subvolumes work and how you can do snapshots and things like that. I think BetterFS is a good middle ground between something vanilla as Extended 4 and something as sophisticated as ZFS. Foolish Noble joining us as well. Another regular. Hello to you, sir. How's it going? This is starting absolutely great. Yeah, I agree with Balthasar. I don't tend to use BetterFS in server constructs, but now with Buttervolume, I've started adopting it for my container hosts. Oh, interesting. I remember pointing you to Buttervolume. I am actually a little bit concerned, but because it doesn't seem to be quite well maintained. Did that change recently? Fulasnabel is making everyone jealous, saying I am still on vacation. If you don't mind sharing, where are you? Foxbit says, yeah, I think BetterFS is a good in-between, but personally I have my problems with snapshots. It's a good feature, but sometimes really bold when using it. What do you mean by bold? I'm going to be using BetterFS for my container orchestration solution that I'm building. I've started building a Podman-based container orchestration solution. I'm building that in Ada of all programming languages. And the intention is to use BetterFS to have this snapshot capability. I want to build a very a container orchestration system that can run on multiple nodes or can manage multiple nodes, multiple servers, without having a high barrier to entry. So it's more for the self-hosting crowd, for people who aren't yet too familiar with Linux. So I decided not to use ZFS because telling people, yeah, you need to set up the ZFS on your machine first before you can use it, sounded a little bit daunting. So I chose BetterFS to do that because you can easily get pre-installed Linux images that are using BetterFS as their file system. And that will definitely make me work heavily with BetterFS snapshots, so I'll see how well it works or not. Balthasar says, sadly, it hasn't. The person that works on Buttervolume has been slowly sunsetting their Swarm deployments, so it hasn't gotten much attention recently. That's always a bit of a shame when people start losing interest or are losing interest in their own projects because they can't use it in practice anymore. Full Snapple says, I just got home from the Swedish archipelago on the west coast. That sounds nice. That sounds really nice. And so I guess you have a few days of holidays left before you need to get back to the daily grind? How is that? Bethesda said, that said, from what I've seen of the code, there aren't any changes to the BetterFS API that it depends on, so I haven't had any heartburn in choosing it. That makes sense. If it works, it works. Foxbit says bold, meaning something sometimes very cumbersome or complicated to use. For example, I never understand why the snapshots are read-only. I see. Why they are read-only? That's actually an interesting thought. My initial impulse would be, of course they are read-only, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, it's understandable that they are read-only because they're the result of what's called copy on write, which means when you create a snapshot, is not that everything that's there gets copied to some other space and then it lies there and keeps its state while the rest of the system is proceeding forward. If it was just a copy, then yeah, I could imagine it being changeable as well. But that's not how these snapshots work. That's not how most snapshot mechanisms work, actually. The way they work is they need to be quick and they need not require a lot of storage space, as if you, for example, copy the whole system disk somewhere and then manage a second copy of that. It's everything that gets changed after the time of your snapshot will then get copied. So if you change a single file after taking a snapshot, that single file will then be changed elsewhere on the disk and the original state will stay on the disk. That's what's going to use up storage space. But it's just that file, or even a fraction of a file. It's probably block-based. So if you take a snapshot and then make no changes to your system, that snapshot will basically take 0 extra storage space because you don't change anything. And once you start changing things, those then take up storage space elsewhere at a different place where they originally had been, and the original stays back. And that's why everything is read-only, because making the old versions of your data writable, I think that's, well, it's at least a challenge, but I think it's pretty much impossible to manage, because you'd have to puzzle together all kinds of things, stuff that gets changed and stuff that didn't get changed, and no, I can't imagine that working out. So that's a short version of why snapshots are read-only, because they are managed by a mechanism called copy on write. So everything stays the same, and things get only copied to a changeable, to a read-write location when you are changing them. Foxbit says, sometimes I also think that I don't really need snapshots at all because they just waste unnecessary storage space. At least in my setup anyway. Well, they shouldn't eat too much storage space, and I guess, yeah, of course, if you don't have a purpose, then don't take any snapshots. That's easy, but I mean, they are great, for example, to run a consistent backup, because with backups you always have the problem that things might be changing while you are taking a backup. And if you have stuff that is related and you've already backed up part A, but then during the backup and until the backup reaches, or before the backup reaches part B, that part A gets changed, and then you get inconsistencies. And creating a snapshot first and then taking a backup of that snapshot means that during the time of the backup, even if it takes hours, the data that it reads will stay static and won't change. And that's, for example, where snapshots really are useful. Fuller Snubble says work starts next Monday. I had quite a long break. I did too. I basically had July off. I did some work in between now and then. Sometimes I had to do some work because of incidents and urgent customer requests and things like that, but only very sporadically, and so I really got to recharge quite a bit. Bethesda says a lot of folks tend to have an inverse model of how file system snapshots work. A snapshot is a frozen checkpoint of data at a certain state. The volume the snapshot is based off of is the mutable bit. Yeah, that's why I think I understand what you mean. That's why I said it's not like the original gets copied and then the copy gets frozen. That's also a very a good reason. Think about it like a picture, since that's where the snapshot name comes from. If I take a picture of a point in time, changing the picture changes that memory. You look back at a snapshot to remember the point in time that it was taken. Yeah, I guess that's the purpose of most snapshots, that they are frozen in time. That's the characteristics you're after. Foxbit says, I guess most people think that if they boot from a snapshot, they can just keep working with it right away. Oh, I see what you mean. If you use the Btrfs snapshots as a fallback mechanism to boot an older system version after a broken update or something like that. I actually don't know how that works in practice, because I haven't had to use this mechanism. I'm spoiled by atomic Linux distributions where I don't have snapshots, but exchangeable system states, which is a bit different from snapshots. So I never had to Yes, I do remember back when I had a What's the Arch Linux based Linux distribution starting with M? I'm blanking on the name, and again can only remember the first letter. My memory is so strange. If I forget something, oftentimes I still remember the first letter, and that's why I need them to start investigating. Foxbit and OA Julian says Manjaro. Yeah, exactly. I did use Manjaro Linux for a while. And I think back then I had to rely on a Btrfs snapshot one time when something broke and I had to reboot. But I don't remember what I then had to do to get everything working again. Foxbit says, but as far as I understand it, you have to restore the snapshot first. Is that even possible from a read-only snapshot? Yes, I mean, it's definitely possible, but it means you'll lose all the changes that were made since the time of that snapshot, of course. You are really winding back the clock. Oh, Julian asks, didn't you use Fedora Silverblue? Yes, in the very beginning I used Fedora Silverblue, and for the last few years I've been using Bluefin, which is originally based on Fedora Silverblue. It's a kind of a Fedora distribution, but the Bluefin team, the Universal Blue team, have done a few opinionated changes to the what the system comes with and how it works. And I pretty much like what they're doing, and Bluefin has treated me well in recent years. Foxbit says, thanks for the explanation. Nice talk about file systems. Happy to do so. That's why I'm here. That's what I'm here for. I mean, I'm here for the banter and the crack as well, but it's still going to be a DevOps-centric stream. Oof, I almost spilled beer on my keyboard. That's not a good idea. Foxbit says, Silverblue is the future for me. It was the best Linux experience I ever had. Yeah, I'm super happy with how these atomic distributions work in general. It's, first of all, it's super reassuring that I can always go back if a system upgrade breaks. I had that quite a few times with the NVIDIA drivers that I need for my streaming machine here. When there was a new NVIDIA driver, and again, games didn't work or OBS didn't work and things like that. And so I simply rebooted into the previous version of the system, and everything was good. I was back to my working NVIDIA driver, and then I tried an update a week later, and there was a fix out, and things worked. So it's super relaxing if you can rely on your system always working and still getting updates on a regular basis. You don't have to fear that you wake up to an update that went completely wrong, and then your system is broken, and instead of doing urgent work, you'll have to repair your workstation. That has always been a thing that annoyed me to no end. So I can really recommend Bluefin, because it comes with a lot of stuff that we as developers or system administrators can use. The whole homebrew library of tools, for example, where you can simply brew install ripgrap or other stuff, and you got it, and you don't have to hunt for RPMs or God forbid have to do curl bash and stuff like that. So yeah, I've been singing the praises of Bluefin for years. People like Balthasar know that, and I will keep doing so, I guess. Fullesnabel asks, how has the weather been in Ireland? So before I left for the North Sea, temperatures had already gotten quite warm at the end of June. And by quite warm, I mean something like 23, 24 degrees, which has been the upper region of temperatures here in Ireland. When people asked me in the past about the weather in Ireland, I always said, yeah, it's very moderate, and I really like that it doesn't go below 0 in the winter, and it doesn't go above 25 in the summer. So it's basically always pretty comfortable temperatures, but that is changing as well. So we had 24 degrees, and later even, I think, 26, 27 degrees, which is really a heat wave, considered a heat wave here in Ireland. And at the moment it's cooled down quite a bit, and it also started raining. I think we didn't have any rain in 3 weeks. So while I was away, there was almost no rain. And when I came back, the garden and everything looked the part. By now it has started to rain, at least drizzle a little bit from time to time. And as I said, temperatures are down to below 20 degrees. I think tomorrow we're going to have 24 degrees. So yeah, it's still balmy. It's nice. Can't complain. But it's not 30 degrees or even more as it is somewhere else in Europe. And don't worry if it's not a DevOps question. I mean, this is just chatting, so there's no enforcement. Foxbit says, Secure Boot has bothered me. It was a hassle to enable it in Silverblue to enroll the MOK. That's quite easy with Bluefin, actually. I had to do that a lot of times because I started to install Bluefin for my family as well. My son needed a laptop for school, so I got him a Bluefin laptop. My wife's old iMac started acting up. So I got her a little mini PC with Bluefin on it as well. And the way Bluefin deals with that is always you install Bluefin, then it tells you we now need to reboot, and you'll be asked to enroll the MOK, enter Universal Blue as a password, and you're good. And that's exactly what you do. You reboot, you get the boot manager request to enter a password. You enter Universal Blue, press enter, and that's it. And that's exactly how it works with Basite as well. I mean, Basite comes from the same family of distributions. And from the same, basically from the same team. I'm not sure if they split up now, if Bluefin has become something separate from Basite, but I think it has. It looks like it. But they definitely they share the same roots. Fullest now says we had a week or so around 30 degrees in Oslo. That's still acceptable, because that means it goes down in the evenings and at night. And that sounds like perfect weather for a vacation. Was it? Do you share that view? Foxbit says, yes, true, those Universal Blue distributions do a good job with mock. Stock Silverblue is really hard to enroll mock. You need to get a script from GitHub from a user, and after an update, the secure boot is faulty. Oof, that sounds like a hassle, yeah. That would deter me from using it. I'm not sure if I had these issues. Maybe I simply went and switched off safe. What is it called? Secure boot? To avoid that hassle, but yeah, since it's so easy with the Universal Blue distributions, I think all my machines are secure boot enabled. Let's see. Foxbit says, that's what I did in the end. Couldn't care less about it. Maybe I need to try Bluefin. Is there an ARM64 version? I don't... I was about to say I don't think so, but I have no idea, to be honest. Could be interesting to install Bluefin as a VM on your MacBook M4. At least that, yeah. Can you install AMD64 VMs? Or does it have to be ARM64? Let's find out, shall we? Bluefin ARM64. Yes, Bluefin LTS HWE AArch64.iso. Just go to Bluefin downloads.
Flush the bombers, get the subs in launch mode. We are at DEFCON 1. DEFCON 1.
Flora the Explorer Cyber! Welcome, Raiders! How's it going? Do the old attack and defend commands still work? Let's try that. Raiders, try the exclamation mark attack command, and viewers use the exclamation mark defend commands. Absolutely, it still works. Hey, Flora the Explorer, how's it going? How was your stream? Thanks for the raid. Man, I'm back on Twitch after months and months, and everything's coming together. All the regulars are back, raids are coming in.
It's a Unix system.
Gotta love it.
I know this.
So, folks.
It's a Unix system. I know this.
Shout out to Flora the Explorer. You had a great time. Oh, sorry. We had a great time. We did some SQL injections. Okay, I see. So the attack and defense scenario was a perfect fit. Theo says Flora is a BA pen tester. Yeah, I figured as much. Welcome, welcome. I'm Jochen, the Monospace mentor. I do managed hosting during the day and teaching Linux and other stuff in my spare time. And I haven't done a live stream in quite a while, so I decided, hey, let's go back and do a simple chat stream where there's no pressure on me to do any projects and stuff like that. And I'm having a blast. So welcome. If you'd like to talk about Linux, about SRE, about cybersecurity or anything, and I mean anything, then make yourself comfortable and let's chat. Foxbit says, I think you can run x86 systems in the VM, but you'll need Rosetta 2 to emulate. Yeah, that makes sense. However, that will be completely removed in the next version, so x86 will be a thing of the past in the Apple world. So you do need ARch packages then, or installation media. Okay. Bethesda says, one might say, haven't we solved SQLi? And the answer is, well, yes, but in practice, definitely not. Flora the Explorer asks, Jochen, are you from the great country of Deutschland as well? I am. But for the last 13 years, I've been living south of Dublin, Ireland, and that's where I'm streaming from. Foxbit asks, can we talk about TempleOS and Holy See as well? Of course we can. We can talk about all kinds of ridiculous topics. And let's be honest, those are ridiculous topics. Stabin2 asks, what is SRI? I think you meant SRE. That's what I meant, actually. That's site reliability engineering. It's basically, I'd say, system administration on a professional level. Foxbit says, Grüße gehen raus nach Deutschland. Yep, to the old home. Bethesda says this is the second time in so many days that TempleOS has come up. Is there a resurgence of faith-based operating systems? Flora the Explorer says, I got a drop. Wish you a lovely evening and have a good stream. Thank you. Have a great the rest of your day as well. Thanks for the raid. I really appreciate it. Foxbit says, TempleOS is always lurking somewhere. Is it though? I don't think so. Bethesda says, I don't know, I'm guessing it got rediscovered and now folks are talking about it again. Well, I guess these niche things, especially if they are as what's the word I'm looking for? esoteric is probably not the right word, but let's go with opinionated. Will always be good topics, or even good rage bait. Foxbit says, isn't that Terry A. Davis thing and Holy C a meme in the IT world? Well, Holy C is an esoteric programming language. It's definitely an esoteric programming language. Yeah, I give you that. Taking a bit of a turn, because I don't want to mix these two things, but speaking of lesser known programming languages, I recently watched quite a few Twitch streams because I needed to get some feel for how I'd like to continue doing my stream, and so I thought I'd get inspiration from other people who are doing streams. And one of the streamers, whose name is I'm blanking on at the moment, they did D programming, and D is an interesting thing. It's basically I described it as D is basically what C++ wanted to become, and they did game programming in D. So if you haven't looked at that, take a look. It's definitely interesting, and it might actually be useful as well. Yeah, game dev in D, actually. Foxbit asks, ever heard about Odin? Yeah, I heard a lot about Odin recently. Not the least because Prime is doing Odin, but I haven't looked into the language itself, so I'm not. I have no idea what to compare it with and what kind of programming paradigm it's following. Have you looked a little bit deeper into Odin? How would you describe it? Bethesda says, there's STL bindings for D. Yeah, and that's what enables you to do game programming with it. I think what I liked about D is that it lost the precompiler instructions, so there's no hashtag include and stuff anymore. It has an import statement where that can pull in libraries, and that alone just looks so much cleaner than C. Foxbit says, I would call Odin something like Go with the power of C. Okay, so that tells me what to compare it with and its basic characteristics, but wasn't Go to be the heir to the throne of C anyway? It being the new language from Ken Thompson? Short of Code is joining us, another member of the server room. Let me plug that shortly. The server room is my community of practice, a membership community where you can join us to simply have chats and post on the forum and read what other people write, but also take part in my courses and in monthly events like our community hangouts or the deep dives that I'm going to start shortly as well, where I basically do presentations on specific topics. And so if you'd like to improve your DevOps and Linux administration skills, that might be a good option. Check it out at theserverroom.sh. Short of Code, how you doing? We haven't talked in a while, since I was off on holidays. How's it going? Foxbit says Odin is more focused on game development, graphics programming, and performance computing. I don't think Go has really taken root in these areas yet. I love Go and I enjoy working with it, but the language always seems like it doesn't quite know what it wants to be. You know, that describes well what I feel or felt about Go as well. When at the beginning of the year I was looking for a compiled and statically typed language that I could add to my quiver of programming languages. I still am mainly a Ruby programmer, but I wanted to get back into compiled languages, into statically typed ones, and of course Go was a good contender there. But I looked at it and at its syntax and at its, well, I'd say lack of object-oriented features, and thought, no, I don't think that's for me. Rust was even less for me, and that's how I ended up actually picking up Ada. And Ada is something that I really liked immediately, not only because it is highly influenced by the Pascal language that I learned back at the end of the 80s. It's also, I mean, it's well known for its stability and robustness, because that's the reason why it's still used in aviation and other safety intensive areas. And so I picked up the language, picked up this tome of a language book, and started building a container orchestration software in Ada. Excuse me. Bethesda says, highly recommend the crew in the server room, and I'm certainly not biased because I'm a member. Hey, I can confirm. And I'm certainly not biased because I'm running the whole place. Foxbit says, what about Zig then? I don't actually remember. I did look at Zig. I also looked at, again with the memory, another programming language starting with N. Also just a few letters. And decided now, I think the programming language starting with N didn't appeal to me because it was very niche on the community. Was pretty small as well. I mean, in the end, I picked a language whose community is even smaller. I guess that wasn't that heavy of a criteria. But yeah. Shot of course, this is going well. Getting back up to speed. How have you been? I've been doing great. I'm back from holidays and also struggling with getting back up to speed and getting back into a rhythm and into a normal daily schedule and things like that. Staben asks, what do you miss in Rust? It's not that I miss something in Rust. I think Rust would be great for everything I'm doing. It's just that its syntax is so different from what I know from now 42 years of programming, that it basically felt daunting to pick up a language that's so different. Not that I would not eventually gotten to use it productively. I'm pretty confident that I would have, but I mean I was spoiled for choice here, and Ada tickled my nostalgia. It also impressed me with its type system and things like that. And I was simply curious how it would be to take such an old language that's only used in niches nowadays, but is still usable in all kinds of stuff. How it would be like that. I guess it's also quite the experiment for me. Foxbit says Hair could also be an interesting language to take a look at. It's very close to the original C philosophy. C-like languages don't really do it for me. I did C programming. I started C programming, I think, back when I had an Amiga in the early 90s, and I think I did some C programming on PCs as well. I got a little bit into C++, but more on a theoretical level. I got the book from Strustrup and looked into that a bit, and I liked the object orientation in there that I was already familiar with from programming in Turbo Pascal. But these C-like languages, I do prefer languages with less curly braces, I guess. So something like Pascal, or nowadays Ruby and Ada. Balthasar asks Nim. Yeah, exactly. That's the language with N. Thanks, Balthasar. Practical Right and Foxbit. That's exactly what I was thinking of. I looked into Nim, but it looked a little bit shaky in terms of maintenance and community size, at least at the time I looked into it, and so it didn't convince me to get deeper into it. Marish says hello. Hello, back to you. Welcome to the stack. Good to have you. Foxbit says, coming to old language. I wrote something with COBOL and Fortran last month. Now that's old, I guess. Definitely. What got you work in COBOL of all things? I mean, I've gotten quite a bit with Ada, and I can actually share the repository with you. Give me just a second to pull up the repository URL on my Vallejo server. And let's see, somehow I can paste that to all streams, can't I? There we go. That's going to appear 3 times, but that's the orchestration project for Podman that I'm writing in Ada. And so Ada so far proved itself capable to do these things. I'm not sure if I could find a practical use case for COBOL. Fortran? Yeah, I guess. You could still do some mathematical or scientific stuff with it. Foxbit says everyone makes fun of COBOL, so I thought to myself, come on, let's check it out. I actually did research on Fortran in college. Okay, interesting. Yeah, you will find that I'm using LLMs heavily to build Podmanda, because I'm simply not that proficient in Ada yet. But I still do apply software engineering practices to the whole project. So I do review basically every line of code and try to understand what it does. And if I don't understand what it does, then I have the LLM explain it to me. And there are a few things where I instinctively then can see that doesn't seem right. For example, when I started with Podmanda, the LLM immediately started using types that started with unchecked access, which is basically pointers that don't get any safety checks. And I thought, well, maybe not start out with something like that. That's definitely something that sounds more like an exception that you only use if you want to interface with C code or something like that. Let's not use something that's called unchecked access. And I told the LLM, yeah, can we find an alternative? And yes, it did. And so that's why I'm confident that the code that I'm having generated here is still good code, because I can't rely on my gut feeling and my experience of 40 years. And of course, a basic understanding of Ada, even though I'm not yet proficient in it. Foxbit says, good question for the chat. What do you think about vibing the stuff? Yeah, that's an interesting question. And before I weigh in, I let you folks tell us what you think. Foxbit, when you say you did research on Fortran in college, does that mean you used Fortran for your research, or did you research Fortran? In general, thumbs up for your approach of saying everyone makes fun of COBOL as the dinosaur of programming languages, so you thought, let's check it out. So what did you do in COBOL? Did you do a small, let's say, Advent of Code style experiment, or did you have a specific application in mind when you started using that? I'm curious what came out of your COBOL experiment. I have a feeling that the YouTube chat doesn't work. That's a valid question, Practical Right. How much are you really learning about Ada if you're having a thing generate code for you? That's a good point, I came to realize, because the thing about learning from LLMs, even if you do it in a controlled way, such as I do, is the learning that you do is similar to the learning that you do from simply watching a lecture, a YouTube video, or even just reading a book. Because, at least in the best case, these things come from people who know their stuff, they have thought things through, and so everything they tell you sounds logical, makes sense, works, and so you sit there and nod, yep, okay. But if you sit down the next day and try to apply what you've heard, what you've watched, what you've read, you realize there's not much that stuck. It all made sense, and in the best case, it all was absolutely clean and valuable. The problem is you just retain that stuff well. And so you really need to practice. And that's actually my friction point. Because I'm using LLMs to get to a practical goal. The stuff that I'm doing with Portmander and my other web-based project that I started thinking about during my holidays and I have now started implementing with an LLM, those are not advent of code style things where you're finished quickly and then you can look at it and see, okay, that's how that works. Oh, that's how that loop construct works in that language or something like that. So that's something that I haven't solved yet, if I'm honest, because while I'm confident that I'll be building software that has good quality and will fulfill its purpose, I still will need an LLM to maintain it for me, or help me maintain it, because I can't go directly into the code and start making changes, start refactoring stuff. And yeah, that's a problem that I haven't solved yet, that I need to solve. That's the thing with generative AI that I still haven't solved, if I'm honest. What I did is I installed an LLM skill from a researcher who is well known for researching learning. And she built, the person that I'm talking about is Dr. Kat Hicks, and she built an LLM, an agent skill, where you can actually tell the LLM, okay, now that we've shipped this feature, build a lesson from what we did there. And I guess that's the first step I'm going to take, use that skill a lot more, because basically what you get is a quiz or a learning session about the thing that you've just built, about the constructs that you just used, about the techniques that you just employed. And I think that would be a good way to include and integrate learning into my code generation. And then I guess having the discipline to go back into your code and actually try to make changes. If there's something where I could say, okay, that's a very narrow scope, that is a not too challenging refactoring, for example, let's switch off the agent, let's go into NeoVim and simply do it. And if it breaks, it breaks, and that's when the learning starts. So I think that's going to be my strategy. Using this learning skill that generates on-the-fly teaching sessions, and challenge myself to work without the LLM as well. I think that's going to help with actually getting a grasp on the language. And since that is one of the main goals, apart from building a working piece of software, yeah, that's what I should do, shouldn't I? Foxbit says, at university, everything is research in one way or another. For a specific term paper, I wanted to break away from the Java world. Yeah, good on you. So I looked for programming languages that are old but still usable. C was old but too obvious, and that's when I stumbled upon Fortran, and I thought the language was kind of cool. It is. Even COBOL is pretty cool. As a business language, it makes perfect sense. I wrote a little program in COBOL that calculates my property taxes. COBOL is essentially the go-to language for calculations, for banks, insurance companies, and so on. So I've actually created a realistic use case for myself. The language itself is fascinating because it's actually not that difficult. No, it's not. It's structured strangely for our modern programming brains, but it works nicely. I've looked into some COBOL code in the past, and I could definitely see, that's how it was used. Batch processing, payroll, and things like that. Foxbit says, but I'd like to add that I have a general interest in programming languages and tend to try everything out. I don't like to close myself off or reject things. Instead, I'm open to anything new. I think that's naturally comes from my time at the university too. And that's such a great mindset. I congratulate you on that mindset, because that's how you stay up to date. That's how you stay relevant. Being curious. Hey, Balthasar, we just talked about curiosity the other day. That's exactly what drove me to that Ada experiment, where I said, I want to build a container orchestration software that's not as complex as Kubernetes, but still can manage multiple servers like Docker Swarm, which is also getting sunset slowly, I feel. And I want to learn another language that's, again, compiled and statically typed. And hey, why not take one of the languages that have the strongest typing that ever existed? And so, yeah, I really can recommend to everyone to adopt this kind of thinking, to not close yourself off, to try other things, to challenge yourself. And that's definitely how you're going to stay relevant, even in these days. So Practical Right, did it make sense? Did my answer to your question make sense to you? Foxbit says this is a good time to get back to vibe coding. I think AI is really cool for programming, but the way it's being used is totally wrong. Yeah, in many ways it is, absolutely. And of course, there are lots of ethical concerns that are hard to hand wave away. But I'll be honest, and I'm going to use a term that's bandied around a lot, but I think it really hits the spot for me. It's a force multiplier. I have a lot of software engineering experience. I know how good quality software should look like. But since I'm running a company that's basically a two-man team, already boxing way above our weight, it would be really hard to have a side project like Portmander. It would be really hard to set aside time for experiments in other programming languages and such. Up until the point where I started using LLMs, I simply could not afford these kind of frivolities. And even for my day job, I'd say I've quadrupled my output in terms of adding features to our product and things like that with the help of LLMs. And since my existence hangs on the success of that company, well, let's say it how it is. I'm willing to turn a bit of a blind eye to the ethical considerations and things like that. I'm taking a bit of a utilitarian stance here, hoping that those issues will be resolved eventually. Pretty sure that's controversial, but it is what it is. Stabin2 says, I learned new language very slow with LLMs, and everyone says coders are not needed in the future anyway. I'm not sure. No, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. If at all, I would say feature builders, developers who are limited to getting a specification and then implementing that, they might become obsolete. Because that's exactly what LLMs are good at. Getting a spec, especially if it's a good and comprehensive spec, and then implementing that. But for example, the thing that I'm doing, where I create these specs, making sure that they're waterproof, and handing them over to the LLM, and then watching the LLM all the way, reviewing the results, and circling back and demanding improvements and things like that. So doing software engineering work instead of just coding work, I think that's always going to be required. LLMs will never have the creativity to find the smart solutions if they're not obvious. And so I'm not too concerned. And I guess so. LLMs will be less of a problem for the more senior engineers. Junior engineers will need to find ways to make themselves relevant. And that's definitely a challenge that I'm thinking about in my role as the Monospace mentor. How can I teach people, how can I teach beginners in the system administration or in the software engineering space so they become successful, so they can become relevant, so they can easily compete against those AI systems. Haven't found the formula yet, but that's definitely a concern that I'm carrying around. Foxbit says, in my opinion, AI should be a tool, a source of help when problems arise, a support system, perhaps even someone to brainstorm with, which I did earlier today, which brought me to my revelation about live streaming, actually. And perhaps even, but I could never imagine asking Claude Code or OpenCode to write me a piece of software called ABC to solve a problem called XYZ, especially not without any oversight or security concerns. Foxbit says, I deeply agree with you. Yeah, okay, that's good to know. And I agree with you. It's not that I sit down and say, hey, program me a Docker or Podman orchestration software in Ada, make no mistakes, and then I'll come back 4 days later to a finished software. I still, and if you look at the Podmander issue queue, you can see how I do spec work, how I file issues for everything that I find, or have the LLM file issues for me for the stuff that I find, and then simply tackle one at a time. And so it's definitely slower going than those alleged examples where someone simply generated a whole application and launched it on some app store or something. I think those are mostly fairy tales. But still, had I had to do it all by myself, there would be no Podmander yet. There would be still only an idea, but not something that actually is already able to deploy simple containers at the moment. And at the moment I'm working on the ingress topic, where incoming traffic gets routed to containers and TLS termination happens and things like that. So soon I'm going to be able to actually use my system to deploy actual payloads on at least a single server. I'm not yet at the multi-server orchestration part, but yeah, it's definitely not something that you just have, where you just have an idea, throw it to an LLM, and then you get a ready-to-use solution. That's definitely going to be either an outlier or a complete fabrication. But that's my biggest industrial concern with LLMs, referring to, I think, my comment on junior developers. Yep, I hope that's not a problem that's going to haunt us in 10 years' time, when not only we, but also the suits realize that senior developers don't grow on trees. They actually grow out of junior engineers. Foxbit says, of course, I also think it's important to consider that you generally know what you're doing and certainly have a good enough understanding of code to spot problems and security issues. Others don't have that. They think an AI can solve all of that for them. I've often seen people who, without a clue, have tried to have an app written so they can sell it. I think that's dangerous. It's dangerous. It's kind of delusional. And but I think those are... That's an issue that will die out quite soon. Because we might still be at a stage where people are excited about these alleged success stories and try to do them or repeat them themselves. But we are going to enter a stage where people read about the failure stories as well. And so I guess we'll have plenty of deterrents to follow that road. Until then, well, I guess we'll need to be patient. Failure will make itself known eventually. Bethesda says the developer role is likely going to evaporate, and software engineering is going to need to become a more mature discipline, more akin to physical engineering disciplines probably. I've heard that a lot, and I tend to agree. I can see that most in all these articles and opinion pieces where people distinguish between coding and software engineering, as I did earlier. Because that's something that still gets conflated a lot. That software engineering is basically coding, because code is the result of that software engineering. But that's such an understatement and such a misunderstanding of the whole process, that the result of software engineering is code, or the result of software engineering is coded software. There's so much more that goes into high quality software than, people rightfully keep emphasizing that coding is maybe the least part of it. Bethesda says the number of people yeeting tokens at an app, a README and a web page, and trying to sell a vibe-coded project as serious software is too damn high. Yeah, but I think that's going to peter out. I'm confident. I'm hopeful that this is going to peter out, because that's the normal gold rush phase of things, and once the to use that analogy, once the deaths and bankruptcies and all that become known, that rush will die out, I guess. And on a larger scale, as Foxbit says, I believe that the AI bubble in its current form will burst. That could happen as well. Stammen2 says, I feel relevant software will need far bigger teams in the future. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that also in how I work. I recently wrote an article. LLMs took my job as a coder, but they made me a better software engineer, because most of the stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis, especially in my company, is more system administration than software engineering. There is a touch of software engineering as well. That's why I use the term SRE, because SRE is basically software engineering applied to the field of system administration. So all this prompting only took me so far, and then I had to start writing specifications, thinking about stuff like PRDs, product requirement documents, and also preserve decisions in architecture decision records, another type of document, and doing all this more formal stuff of documenting stuff in advance or after the fact. That got me a real feeling of, now I'm doing engineering. Now I really, because if I'm honest, because of my situation where there's so much work and so little time, I think I could say I did vibe coding before there were even LLMs, before LLMs became popular, because when there was something to do in our hosting product, I simply thought it through a little, sat down, did some coding, and More often than not, it worked based on my amount of experience and routine. But it wasn't really completely thought through, and it wasn't planned properly, and unfortunately it often also wasn't documented properly. And so I often then revisited decisions I made in the past because I didn't remember why I made them, and I reverted them, and then something broke, and then I remembered why I made that decision in the past, and stuff like that. So I guess even without LLMs, there was some vibe coding aspect to my approach to working, and now with LLMs, they gave me the space and the time to actually do that stuff, because I can discuss something with an LLM, and then I can have it generate the architecture decision record, and it's going to be nicely phrased English, which is always a challenge for me as a non-native speaker, and I can then still review the document to make sure it says what it's supposed to say, but suddenly I have the space to do things more rigorously, to do things more properly. And if we want to keep using LLMs, or even if we have to do without LLMs because the bubble burst, I think it would be good for every software development organization to have that realization, to say, yeah, we should take the time to document stuff, to write proper specifications in advance, so people know what to build and know what not to build, to know where the scope ends and things like that. So there's a lot of shitty stuff happening in this whole industry, but I think there's also a lot of potential to learn. Foxbeat says this AI situation reminds me heavily of the dot-com bubble back then. We all know how that turned out. Yep. Yeah, the economic side of things is mind-boggling. Money with amounts that require scientific notation just being passed in a circle and things like that, that's absolutely bonkers. Forty Edith says, hello. Tomorrow I really have an interview for DevOps. I have almost 1.5 years of experience, but I generally deal with on-prem DevOps, not cloud. Is it still considered as DevOps or not? Yeah, sure it is. Especially if it's not just system administration, but there is some connection to the development side. Not in... if it doesn't look like when I worked as an IT manager in a corporate setting where there were tightly separated silos of system people here and developers there, and stuff just got thrown over the wall. If that's not the case, then it's definitely DevOps. And DevOps doesn't really distinguish if it's on-prem or if it's cloud-based. Where your infrastructure is running isn't as important as the processes that you use to provision, manage them, to basically control their whole life cycle. Shot of Code says there was some metric measuring some number of new Git repos and how long dev continued. It showed a high abandon rate. I can't find it at the moment. Yeah, but it wouldn't surprise me. Repos that are wipe coded. Yeah, sure. The barrier to entry is low. It's cheap. But the barrier to entry is not the problem. Not the only problem. 40 says, I really deployed DevOps for AI, ML, microservices, Docker containers. Is it still considered as DevOps? I have an interview tomorrow. Yeah, it is. That's definitely part of DevOps. Microservices is architecture, but also infrastructure. Docker containers are definitely infrastructure. So yeah, don't worry, that's solid DevOps. Bethesda says, good architecture decision records is future-proofing against Chesterton's fence, which is great for newcomers to your code base. Yeah, and I always include myself in these newcomers as well, because as I've already proven to you in this stream, my memory isn't great sometimes, and I can really switch my mind to thinking about a thing this way in that month, and then a completely different way 3 months later. So writing stuff down even helps myself not to always cycle between states where I make a decision, then revert the decision, and then revert that decision again. Mavereth says, thankfully we have gold standard to rely on. Welcome to the stack, Belfbeth. What gold standard are you referring to? I'm curious. Foxbit says, thanks for that amazing talk, by the way. I like discussions with like-minded guys. I do too. I also do discussions with not like-minded guys. That's why I really appreciated Practical Rides question earlier. And of course, I have to agree with Balthasar. You definitely like hanging out with in the server room. The server room.sh. Short of code says, it seemed to me the lack of initial investment of time and effort makes it easier for a maintainer to give up. Yeah, that too. I think blood, sweat and tears, building something aren't the greatest experience, but they definitely make you identify with what you're doing, because otherwise you probably wouldn't be doing it. Foxbit says, feel free to share a link. I will share a link with you. Happy to share a link with you. We would be happy to welcome you in the server room. There's even a supporters membership where you just get access to the forum and our chats, which is already great. And then you can get a feeling for the community and maybe upgrade your membership then to get access to courses and community events as well. And the support membership that gets you access to forum and chat is only $5 a month. So speaking of barriers to entry, that's a really low one. And Bethesda, I think the command is !community if it still works. Haven't tested it in a while. Bethesda says probably the US Treasury's former backing of all currency with gold. Yeah, that's the gold standard, I know, but I wasn't sure. I'm pretty sure Mathabeth used that only as a metaphor for something, and I didn't find the connection there. Oh, here he says, I was joking about that scientific notation, fake money going around. Didn't notice comments are ahead of your talk. Oh, okay, okay. Oh, is there such a delay in the stream? Okay, strange. Scientific notation, fake money going around. Yeah, it's not the first time, but it's the first time we're talking about trillions, isn't it? Strawberry Kitten asks, loving the stream so far, but you know what's missing? Tell me. Tell me what's missing. Bethesda says definitely that, but also coding agents will happily register a GitHub account, create the repo, and push your code to it for you without the LLM user being aware of what's going on. No consideration of how long-lived the code would be, whether it's open to collaboration, etc. Yeah, also no consideration of safety features and all that stuff. And that's what I mean. I think evolution will take care of that, because those projects will, I guess, yeah, they must implode eventually. Holy Mohammed asks, welcome to the stack, by the way, have you worked on more data-oriented positions, data ops? No, I haven't. I've been pretty much working in the web industry since the early 2000s, so for the last 25 or more years. I basically worked in web operations. First as an IT manager at a few of Europe's leading internet providers, and then for the last 16 years in my own hosting company. Foxbit says we are missing Pepe emojis. I don't think we're missing them. Bethesda says, there's a vibe-coded little app that I use to download shows from a streaming service to my Jellyfin server. That player is awful, so playing it out on my hardware is preferred. And it had some issues that I fixed and submitted a PR for it. It's been about a year and that PR has never been looked at. Yeah, that's a shame. I mean, even that would have been an opportunity to take something that's vibe-coded to something more community-based, for something more collaboration-based and something like that. But yeah, I think if the how would I phrase that? If the identification isn't there, if that basic substrate isn't there on which things can grow, which includes identifying with your project, having a clear goal, having a vision and a strategy. These are all things that are criteria for a successful project, aren't they? And if those are missing, that flower will wilt quickly. If you know what I mean. Foxbit says it's time for me to go. Unfortunately, I have to say goodbye to the group. I guess we will see us next time. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do another stream, probably even tomorrow night, because that's where I decided to put my weekly stream, Thursday night at 7 p.m. UTC. So if you have time tomorrow, feel free to stop by. And I intend to do this kind of chat, or maybe a co-working stream every Thursday night regularly. And that's probably a good time to tell you about my live stream strategy that I found. But before, Foxbit, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for that great chat, and see you soon. So yeah, earlier today I said, okay, I lost another morning slot that I had planned to do my live stream, because that's when my brain is freshest, and I thought, yeah, it's probably a good idea to start early so I can start with energy and really get something done. Last week I didn't make it because I was still trying to get out of vacation mode, trying to get back to a proper sleep schedule and things like that. And today I had to sleep in because I had an alert in the middle of the night that kept me up, and so I slept in until 11 a.m. missing my whole streaming slot as well. And so I thought, could it be that my job, and especially my schedule, is too volatile to do this kind of live streaming? And then also, is live streaming really what I want to do to grow my community? Because as fun as it is, and it definitely is fun, I can tell you that, tonight's stream, I'm having an absolute blast. Xam Linux, another regular. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for stopping by. Live streams are still ephemeral things. As much fun as we have here, if you're not on the live stream, you'll miss it, and there's almost nobody who will go and watch a live stream VOD again. So I thought, yeah, if I reserve a whole morning for this kind of work, shouldn't I rather do video production for more long-term videos that I can put on my website and on streaming services? And so I sat down and did a little discussion with GPT. Told the LLM to basically act as a sparring partner and to work things out with me. And yeah, so first we got to the point where I said, yeah, I think I should rather focus on producing videos and use that to generate more content, to show people what I do and to entice people to become members of my community, to learn from what I do and from what other people in the community do, of course. And at that point, I almost thought, okay, that's it for live streams. And that also means I won't need that dual screen setup anymore. And maybe I can downsize my Stream Deck and things like that. Because producing videos won't require these things. And maybe working with a single screen will even improve my focus on what I'm working on and things like that. But then things took an interesting turn. Because then I realized, okay, if live streams aren't the essential content production piece for me anymore, then I can take a completely different approach to that. Then I can do these just chatting streams. Then I can do something more low-key. I can do co-working streams. I don't have to come up with a project that I will then execute as perfectly as I can while people are watching me. And I could do that even in the evening time when I already have a hard day of work behind me. And at that point, I felt a wave of relief going through me that I almost had tears in my eyes. I felt all this pressure that I had put on myself vanish and realized I can do live streams. I can even maybe insert a serious coding project live stream now and then, but I can also do chill stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, this realization made my day today, and that's why I said, okay, usually Wednesday nights are couples night for my wife and me, but since my wife's still in a different country than I am, let's try this out. Let's give this a stab and do just a just chatting live stream. And hey, I probably don't have to tell you what I'm taking from this experiment. But yeah, this was really a blocker for me, because during my holidays, I spent quite a bit of time thinking hard about what can I do? When will I do live streams? What's going to be my strategy? Should I even do live streams? Am I built for live streams? All these questions, and it's all gone. Examining says, I've been laid off, so I have time to be around. Sad to hear it. Hope you're going to find something quickly. Mapbest says, live stream ephemeral thing. That is a very exact way to put it. Hard to compound time spent on it. Great insight. Yeah. Stabin2 says, have to go. This was interesting. Have a nice evening. You too. Thanks for stopping by. Bethesda says, I think you'll find that these lower key streams might end up having better engagement too, because while folks do like structured content, they also just like to hang out. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've learned from our community hangouts. And one aspect that I discovered earlier today when I did this thinking session is even these low-key things will still have impact on the server room, and I don't have to be the perfect lecturer all the time. It can be just a casual chat as well that convinces people to join us. Bethesda says, I'm really glad. I do love our hangout sessions too, but I got started hanging with you right here. Yeah, we did back in the day, and I'm glad we get to keep doing that. Yeah, definitely. Bethesda says, man is a social animal. That fact always surprises me too. That's another aspect that I documented in my thinking note, because I think, yeah, that's why I enjoy these live streams, because it creates social connection. There are people, there are the regulars that come by, which is definitely a sign of appreciation, and yeah, we are developing low-key relationships this way. But there are also people, new people dropping in, like yourself, who bring in new angles, new opinions, new insights. And I've always been enjoying that. And I've been doing live streams now for more than 7 years. Of course, with lots of downtimes in between, but still 7 years. So part of me was sad when I was at the point where I said, okay, let's focus on something like videos for my website and for YouTube instead of doing live streams on Twitch on my own cast instance. And that's why when it clicked, when I realized you don't have to forego this social aspect. Just make some less ambitious live streams. And that's what I'm going to do on Thursday nights on this very channel, wherever you are watching me. Which is, I think, a good time to wrap things up, because it's 10 o'clock here. So speaking of getting back to a normal schedule, I probably should prepare for horizontal mode. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. UTC. Hope to see you then. Folks, I'm full of gratitude for you to stop by, for everyone who said hi, for everyone who participated in chat. This was much better than I anticipated, and I had a lot of fun, and hope we can continue that. So, yeah. Hope to see you soon. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to the channel so you get notified when I'm back, which is hopefully going to be in less than 24 hours. Until then, take care.
Sometimes I find myself talking, let the wind carry my words away. I can't say this for certain.